So my name is Nick. I'm the scientific sports specialist with 80 Instruments. And today I'm just going to start a new series on LabChart Lightning, and basically want to go through a brief, or the first webinar, I just want to go have a brief overview of what it is, how it compares to LabChart 8, its benefits in using it, its limitations currently, and how you can actually install it for a trial and put some data in it, put in your LabChart files in there and just have a play, see if you like it. So what you see here is, I don't mean to make this complicated, but this is just the overview of how Lightning looks. What you'll see though is that there are things that are simple about it, and there are things that are a little bit different. So the first thing you might see that, look, you have this dark view, which is something that is unusual for people that come from, that are regular LabChart users, but this can be changed with the view and the light theme view if you prefer that. But since I've been using LabChart Lightning for a while now, I'm just used to the dark theme. It just suits me better. So I'm just going to continue the rest of the webinar with the dark theme here. So I will talk more about Lightning itself a bit later in the webinar, but first I just wanted to go through, what are the benefits in using Lightning. So the first things that I'll actually quickly close this and move on to our web page here. You will see this under 80instruments.com/products/LabChart/Lightning. And here provide you an overview of what a basic table of what Lightning provides versus LabChart 8. It also provides you some nice images of what LabChart Lightning looks like, and some licensing as well. But first, I just want to go through what Lightning is. So Lightning itself is still LabChart 8 under the bonnet, but it's been totally redeveloped from the ground up. The reason why is that LabChart, as we know it, it's been over 30 years of development to get to where it is now. But we wanted to change things to make things that were limiting of LabChart 8 to make things with more freedom and flexibility and ease of use for someone that is, starting, working with LabChart. So this is one of the new features you're going to see, and you'll see this as I progress through the actual Lightning platform, the freedom and flexibility to modify the signals, to overlay the signals. You have freedom with how you can do your data management and just how the data is presented. So these are new freedoms that we provide with Lightning that is some limitations with LabChart 8. Other things we see that with LabChart Lightning is we wanted something of a platform, a user interface that was more streamlined. So something that was a bit easier to look at without having too many options. So, I mean, I have quite a few things going on here at the moment, but if I just had this under a, let's just say a new recording, it actually will look quite simple. So it actually looks fairly simple. So you'll see just your basic channels here, and there's only a few buttons. And this minimalism is purposefully put in just to make things easier to understand and for people just to pick up on their, to pick it up a bit easier. Another new feature with Lightning is the cross record analysis and data management. So what that means is we are familiar that, the way the Lightning or the way the LabChart process is of collecting data, you would, analyze your data and, put into DataPad. Most likely you would have to just copy it over to Excel, do your analyses that way, have, multiple tabs open, eventually get down to the averages, the standard deviations, and eventually you get some critical numbers you can put into your statistics. So there are a lot of steps there. So what we wanted to do was have a platform to provide the cross-platform analysis part of it. So that means that what you're able to do is have all your LabChart files opened up simultaneously within Lightning. So you can seamlessly move from one recording, which we call a LabChart file. So I'll talk about that a bit quickly, a bit later on for you. They can have all your LabChart files while it's running at the same time. So this way you can actually analyze some data in one file or a recording and compare that to another recording. And then this way you can actually have a table that will have a cross-platform analysis to make it easier to analyze your data. Another option with Lightning that we do have here that we have a tick with is the ability of having unlimited signals, which will be unlimited channels. So if you're familiar with LabChart, you are limited or hard limited to 32 channels. You can't go any more than that. So what we have done with Lightning is that you have the ability to just keep adding new channels. So you can just keep add channel below. You just keep doing that, constantly keep doing that, and just pressing plus. And this way you just keep adding channels without a problem. I'll just remove this recording for the time being. Other options here is cross-platform. So what does that mean? So that is actually what you see with Lightning is the exact same as what you would see with the Mac. So this is something that's really important that we wanted to, it was one of the reasons why we wanted to redevelop LabChart here, was so that Mac users have the same experience as a PC user. And that's really important when you are working from one computer that's a PC, but then if you go to a Mac, you may have limitations. So what we have here is we want to break those limitations and have things consistent. So that's really important to keep it the same. Other options we have here is that we have that light and dark view that you saw, which is, you can see this in LabChart 8, but it looks more visually pleasing to the eye. So we just modified that. You can also do import and exporting. And another thing I wanted to talk about was annotations and regions. So this is the same as with LabChart 8, but they're given different terms. So an annotation just means a comment, and a region is just a selection. So it's just fairly similar. Your readouts are the same thing as your DVM. You would just take out in LabChart 8, but with some minor additions to that to add some more data for you to make things a bit, so you can keep track of your data better. There are some limitations. Actually, I want to talk about this quickly in history and autosave. That's actually a really important feature that is new to Lightning. What that means is it's really important for data integrity. So we wanted to have features where you don't have to worry about saving. It'll autosave every time for you. So anytime you close it, it's autosaved. The other feature has is history. So what that means is that any button that you press or feature that you add or you remove, or if you add a calculation, an example, or select a region or add a comment or anything like that, these are all being recorded within Lightning. So at any time, if you wanted to go back in, if you're looking at your data, in a month and like down the track, you look back and you want to know what's going on at that period of time, you can actually look at your history to see if what modifications you made. And let's say also if you made a mistake, you removed a comment, you can actually go back, you can go into the history to find that comment and revert to that time so you don't ever lose anything. So anything you make, any changes you make, you can always go back in time. Or if you're back in time, you can always restore it if you want to go back, to where you were originally. That's a really important feature with history and autosave. Macros, simulations, data plots, and spectrum is not currently in Lightning, but that is in development at this stage. I know a lot of people do use, the extensive library of extensions and modules with LabChart 8. So these are not currently in Lightning, but there's a good reason why at the moment, but it is actually developing as we speak. And The reason why is we're developing something in Lightning which is unique, that is called custom calculations. If you're familiar with arithmetic at all in LabChart 8, custom calculations is a really simple way of providing calculations visually. So you're able to tailor the calculations that you require. Now, the modules that we have are, fantastic, but they do have limitations. I mean, limitations such as specific calculations were built into these modules, and you can't change these calculations. With the custom calculations feature in Lightning, you can modify calculations to your liking, and then that way you can also save these calculations and send them to your peers and build a library up. So this way it does add to that freedom and flexibility to users, that they can provide new calculations, and it's a sandbox idea. And I can help you, and our team can help you develop these calculations to suit what you need. Another new feature with Lightning that is not, with the extensions, that we have here is, you do have extensions where there are some serial devices that do work with LabChart, but unfortunately not all serial devices do. So you have to think, well, how long is it going to take, for, if I want this device to, how long will it take LabChart to make? Well, there's something that we're providing with LabChart, and what that is, it's called a software development kit. This is unique to Lightning, and what this is going to do for you is, with the software development kit that we provide, theoretically, if you're willing to put in the coding, that you can actually integrate your serial device into Lightning directly. You don't even need the Power Lab. So we provide that kit for you, and you can use that. And I'll actually put that in the comments as well. I think I will drop that in there. I'll do that a little bit later on. But that's something that's new to Lightning that we're really excited about, and that is developing as we speak. So that's just the briefly an overview of what Lightning is compared to LabChart 8. And if you wanted to get started with Lightning, there are a couple of ways you can do this. The simplest way is actually going through to your trial version here. Anyone can sign up here for free for a 30-day trial. And that way you can just test it out. So you can actually put your LabChart files in there into Lightning, and it will run, without a problem. The other option is, I would recommend talking to our sales staff representatives, as there are options. If you do have LabChart 8 Pro, as an example, you are eligible to 2 full licenses for up to a year. So that's really exciting, and you're able to get those updates, and that are coming out on a regular basis here. So when I do mean these updates, that we have a really innovative and a brilliant team that is driving Lightning at the moment, and this team is really motivated and to get out these updates as fast as possible and really make this excellent user experience for everyone out there. So that's where we're going to. So another thing I did want to mention quickly was that Lightning is not meant to replace LabChart 8 for the foreseeable future. Think of it as a platform that is running in parallel with LabChart 8. So it is easy when you do look into Lightning to compare it to LabChart 8. And there are obviously going to be features that, some features aren't going to be there, and they're going to be features that are different. But that's all meant to be done that way, to redesign it, to make things more streamlined and more flexibility for the user. Eventually down the track, Lightning will take more of a mainstream approach here, but currently it is just in parallel with LabChart 8. And we obviously can still support LabChart 8. That won't be a problem. So to install it, I would recommend either to install the trial version here, or talk to your sales representative to see if you're eligible for one of those full licenses. And of course, if you like to purchase it, you can do that too. So when you do go through this, you'll immediately receive an email such as this, and it'll give you your username, which will be your email address, and a temporary password. From here, you just have to log in and change the temporary password to a full password, so to any password you like. And it'll show you then this licensing website. So this website is actually really important for licensing. It's licensing.labchart.com. And if you're using a trial version, from here, it'll tell you, how many days you have left to use a trial, purchase a trial. It also has the option, it has support features there. And it also has the options of downloading Windows or Mac. So whatever version you're using, you can download it there. This licensing page will be a little bit different if you did have the full license. There's an administrator that would be involved here that can allocate licenses to users. And you can also modify licenses to be allocated to computers instead. So that means that if you have a computer in the lab that doesn't have the internet, or if you just want a general computer use for all your users, then you can allocate a license to that computer, and then anyone can use it. But I do want to mention that the way Lightning is set up, it can be used, or most likely will be used, as an online platform. So what this means is, as long as you have the internet, you can log in and use Lightning. So with LabChart 8, you're restricted to how many licenses you have. So if you have one in the laboratory, which was great, and if you have one on your computer, your personal computer, that's great. But then if another colleague wants to use it, they're limited to what they can actually, how many licenses you have. With Lightning, you can actually install Lightning on every device. And as long as you have one license, you can go from one computer to the other computer. And as long as you have the credentials, the username and the password, then you can log in there that way. So that's a freedom that Lightning does provide you. Yeah, that's the SDK that I was referring to a bit earlier on. So I will show you this link later on if we're talking more about the serial devices. I'll send this to you as well. So that's done. So let's say you wanted to import some of your files. How are we going to do that? So let me just log out of this first. So how it's going to look when you do open up, when you install Lightning, it's going to provide a window like this. And now you're just going to have to put in your email and your password. The use offline license option is just used for full license users, so it's not currently available for trial users. And for trial users, once the 30 days is up, then Lightning won't actually be operate. You won't be able to use it after that. But with a full license, even after a year or however long you have the license permitted for, you're still able to use Lightning. It's just that you won't have the ability to see the new updates or the key features that have been implemented, with the new updates. Just log in right here. And how it's going to look when you open up for the first time, it's going to look like this: create or open a project. So what does this mean, project? So how we have set it up here now with Lightning is that think of a project as just a folder, okay? So everyone that uses LabChart, they have folders with all their files in there, okay? So a project is just, some sort of a chapter maybe in your thesis or, your PhD or honors or whatever. And that's going to be a folder. And within the folder, your project will be your LabChart files. So within Lightning, these are called recordings. So you can have separate recordings here. So how we are setting up with Lightning is that when we have Lightning opened, you can actually click just as simply as this from one recording to another and make it really easy to compare, to go from one recording to another. It's really simple to do that. So this is what recordings means, and that's what a project means. So what I want to do here is that if I wanted to import my data, I could just go to File and go to Import. And since this is a new project, I first need to go New Project. And when you go to New Project, you'll see a window like this. Then you can go to File, and then you can go Import, and then you can import your recording. You can also import projects. I'll talk about this a little bit later on, but first let's just talk about import recording. My apologies there. Click on that, and we'll go to Demo Project, and let's import a BP demo. And now we've imported a BP demo. So this file it's still, the way it's saved, you can still open it up in LabChart 8. So any modifications you make, it'll be saved, and then you can still open up these files in LabChart 8. That's not a problem at all. So that's the safety you have. You know, there's not that you just commit to Lightning. You can always go back and open them up in an older version. I do, a point of warning though, that calculations you made, so cyclic measurements, and that there's a whole new, that we don't have the data pad here, it's a whole new cross analysis table. Data pad won't be available here. It's a different variation, and your cyclic measurements that you provided or arithmetic, these won't be provided either. So you instead, those channels that did have those calculations will just be empty. You'll just have to then recreate those calculations. So with Lightning, you can easily just file import, like I said. Let me just remove this recording here. This is nothing in here. Or you can you can also have the ability to just drag and drop. And that'll also, as you can see, put your recording in as well. So we can just do the same with the rest of these. We can just drag and drop. And drag and drop. Yep, great. So that's how it works. Now, you might be wondering about what about Max? So, you know, if you are familiar with Max, you do know that, let me just quickly go back to my window browser here, that if you have a LabChart 8 for Mac, you can open files without a problem in Lightning. If you're using LabChart 7.2.5 or earlier, files will have to be modified. And what this means is you'll have to go to File, Save As, and save it under as Windows data. It won't work any other way. So unfortunately, this is just the way we have to set it up. So that means that once again, you'll lose the cyclic measurements calculations, but the raw data will all be there. And your annotations will still be there too. So that won't change whatsoever. So just make sure you save, if you're using a LabChart 7, change it to Windows data. So we'll go back to our data here. So now I've spoken about this and how we can import our data. What we can also do is we can import the data, but let's say we also wanted to do some exporting. So if you wanted to, you could export a recording by going File and Export, and you can actually take a recording out. Or the other way is, let's say, you know, as you can see here, this is my project. So I can actually call this, let me just make this a bit bigger. I can change this name to whatever I like. So I can call this demo project. And within this project, I have 4 recordings, 1, 2, 3, 4. So within these recordings now, if I wanted to export this, it's a really good way, really easy way to do this. So unlike you have, you know, with LabChart 8, you would have to have a folder with all your recordings in there, and then you'd have to just, you know, just drag and drop this into maybe your Google Drive or your thumbstick. What you can do here is, if you can go to File, you can actually go to Export. You can go to Export Project. So what this will do, it'll say Export Project to, let's say, under Desktop. Let's export the project and press Save. So now it's exporting what is in this project, and the export's done. And it shows me how large it is there. So continue. So if I minimize this, you'll see the project there. It looks like a suitcase. So you can send this via email or Google Drive. And what that will do for you is, when you actually put this into Lightning, so if I just drag it in, so if my colleague or if someone sends this to me, I can just drag it in. It'll import the demo project, and within that project will be all 4 of those recordings, because that was in the original project. So it'll just send to that, we'll go to that project right now. Which obviously this is the same project, so you're going to see the same, 2 projects here, but that's something that's really important to have. So what we can see with the data management here is how easy it is to import your data, to export. And if this computer is being used publicly by other students, you can have separate projects here. So there could be a PhD chapter project here, or an honors project here. So you can have as many projects as you like, and you can go in between projects really easily, and that'll just load up for you. So, you know, if you do have a lot of folders, you know, it can get quite messy with how things are sorting out. So this way, with data management we have here, it's quite effortless to go from one project to another without any problems at all. So that's how we can import and export data. Sorry about that. Now let's just quickly go over the overlay of what we see here. So what I have been doing, I'm just going to go over one of my other projects. It's a new drug trial. And I'm just going to briefly go over what we see. So this is the first webinar of, I think, 4 I'm going to do. And this one, I'm just going through the overview of how you can start it up if you're new to it. And the next webinar is going to be more to do with, recording data. So what do we see here? So what I've done here was, one of the keys with Lightning is, yes, it does have the ability to do unlimited channels. So you can just press, right click and you can add channels below, or you can add channels here as well. Another thing that is new to Lightning, which is quite unique, is your ability to overlay channels. So what overlay signals? So let me get those definitions clear for you. So a channel is what we see here, not the data, it's just that this is a channel. But the signal is the actual data itself. So what does that mean? What we can actually do is we can left click on our signal and we can actually drag it into a different channel. And if we double click like this, what we see now is that our data is overlaid. We can also do the same with another signal. So you can overlay all the signals together if you like. That's not a problem. And you can double click here to do your, so actually we can actually blow this up to make it a bit easier to see. And we can have the option to auto scale. And what you see here is all 3 signals simultaneously put together. Now, you have this ability limited within LabChart 8 through scope view and through the zoom view. But this way you can actually have your signals superimposed while the data is recording. So it's a really nice way of looking at your data and seeing, you can do calculations easily if you need to go from one point to another. You can look at that and you can look at, trends, that sort of thing. So it's actually really important to have this overlaying feature. So we can put these back to how they were. And what we see here is we can actually just resize this like that. And another good feature we see here is the top here. What does this mean? The colors. So this is actually an overlay of the whole overview of the whole recording. So I can actually click on any point here and it'll take me to that point in time. Any point here that I want. So that's really an easy thing to do. And another thing that was limiting with with LabChart 8 was you have to press the plus and the minus here to change the scaling. And you do have this here to change this as well, but one thing that's really effortless is the ability to use the mouse wheel. What you can do is if you scroll the mouse wheel back or forward, you can actually zoom in and out of your data really, really easily. Not a problem at all. And the same thing, if I use my mouse wheel on the scale, I can change the scale. So that's really easy to do if I want. So at any point, if I want, I can look at this file in this particular signal. I can zoom out, and I can zoom right in there if I want. So that's really simple to do for me. And then I have that option to make this back to its original position and auto scale everything. So what we see here is, once again, an element of simplism. So the options here are fairly simplistic. Here we have the files, the exporting, importing. Importing is just copy and paste. The commands, auto scale channels, which we've done already with our icon. Setting up, we can do the recording devices. We can talk about that in a future webinar. These are just some simple options here, some shortcuts, which are all provided here anyway, and your help as well. Talking about the licenses, it will help and support if you need that. We can see what devices what connected. So if I just add a device, I can see my 26T. I can select that and have that put into the Lightning. I can start recording if I wish. And what else we see? We see timing here. And on the right side is, this is all here is all new to what we are used to. So This is more to do, well, this particular window here is more to do with how we are managing the data. So specifically, we can see the recording itself. So this is the name of the recording. This is a week 4 recording. And this recording has a particular tag. So this mock experiment I'm doing, I have 3 subjects. I have Ben. I'm measuring BP, blood flow, ECG. That's our control. I'm measuring the drug treatment. So this is like a drug X. It's just something random. That's Mary. So measuring the same parameters. And James is our sick as well. So we're just testing out a drug, really, really simple. So we have 4 recordings here, so over 4 weeks, and we just have different parameters. So I've tagged that the first week there was no activity, and the second week there was low activity, then medium, and then strenuous in the last week. And I can go in between these recordings. So remember, a recording is a LabChart file. So this way you can see it's really effortless to go from one recording to another. You don't have to minimize this, go into a folder, find your work. It's all saved here for you. Here you have the options, like I said, to add tags, which is really important when you're looking at your work. So, these are animal studies. You can have the title of your experiment, but then if you want to be more specific, you may have to have a lab book to write your specific specificities. So like, the mouse or the animal coding, or like what type of experiment you're doing, or if there was any artifacts or any issues, anything like that, feeding or anything like that, then you can add tags to help you. And this is really important, I think, especially when you're looking at your data after you finish. So if you have a lot of experiments done, let's say you're looking at it, in a month down the track, you're about to write your thesis, but you want to start getting on the results. Having these tags is really important, that if you know specifically what you're looking for, like let's just say I'm looking for which ones had no activity, or which ones were sick, or which ones were a different type of dosages. I can look for that particular tag, and then that way I can find exactly what I'm looking for. So these are really important for data management. And that's what we have here. So these points here, the no activity, the control, drug treatment, sick, we can all search for these. So searching is really important within Lightning as well. So you have many ways to search for your data. One way to search for your data is under recordings. So 100 recordings, I can look for things like, I know that I gave one of my subjects, I gave them a placebo. So if I typed in placebo, it'll tell me, okay, it will search and tell me, okay, well, these 4 recordings had placebo. Great, so I can see that. But I know that there were some recordings that had artifacts. So if I looked in artifact, it shows me the symbol of that's an annotation symbol there. So I click on artifact, it'll say, okay, there were 3 artifacts in these recordings. And I can go further with that. So if I wanted to click instead, if I click on annotations, what it shows me, so if I just wipe this out in a little bit, it shows me all the annotations I have right now. So remember, annotations are comments. So these will tell me the exact time and in which block. So what that means for me is that at any time, if I search for any of these comments, what you'll see is that it will go immediately to that comment, immediately to that point. And that's really important to see that. So the first thing we see is that our Lightning view here is that it will show you that, okay, it shows me a little screen of, okay, whereabouts the comment is. So what you can see here is that the annotations are now above. So if they are full, if they're blue like this, blue is the default color, it'll show you, that's actually highlighting that particular annotation. If I search for another annotation around here, this annotation here, I haven't selected it, so it's hollow. But if I do select it, it'll turn to blue. You can customize these if you like. You can change these to any color if you wish. That's not a problem. So if you want, you can color coordinate. If you know that if you have meant to have a really long comment, then you can maybe want to color coordinate to make things a bit easier for you. And color coordinating is really important in Lightning, especially with the custom calculations that I'll talk about a bit later on. But you can see here, you can actually search for all your annotations really easily. I have groups. So here I have different groups regarding whether or not they were given, which ones were the control, which ones were given the placebo, or which ones are sick. I have all these as well. So I have 4 recordings. And within this for recordings, I also have subjects. So the subjects comes down to the group. So what this means is that I had Ben, Mary, and James, and each one was given a different, if you can tag them with different groupings. So this one had, if I want to look for Ben, for example, that in week 2, which was during the low activity week, I can look specifically at the recording for that week. Or if I look down here, I can say Mary, what was happening for Mary, or in week 1, no activity, I can go to Mary week 1 straight away. I can do that. So by having these tags and these groupings that we see here, this helps us search for our data really efficiently. So it's really important when you're looking at a lot of channels, you can get lost in the amount of data there is, but just having this ability to search for your groupings and for your tags is really critical. Project, you can change the name of the project, that's no problem at all. And the history option, which I was mentioning earlier to you, is that I can actually look through the history of this whole recording at every point, and I can actually see what was going on. So I've imported data here, I have made a channel here, I have adjusted the vision, what I'm seeing, adjust the channel. So I can actually right click on any of these and revert to here, and it'll go back in time to that point. So I'm not gonna do that for the moment, but I can do that. That's really easy to do. And if we go back then to what we see here, so we go back to our recordings. On the left side here, we have the options to do our sampling. So that just means to change we're looking at your rate, your range, your low pass filter. That's all involved. Your units conversion, that's here. And you have your options here to put in a DVM, show a readout. That's our readout here. That's not showing anything at the moment. That will show up when we actually are recording data. But here it just shows you what the data will be, what signal it is, and what trend line, if it's going up or down. So that's how it looks. Other options we have here is our table view. So what the table view means is this is to do with our recording. So what we see here is a culmination of our regions and of our regions. So how does this work, regions? So regions works with your table view. So what this means is, in this particular experiment, if I just go back to my recordings, let's just say week 1, I had two different types of regions. I had a baseline region, which I've selected here. You can see here baseline. If I double click this, it'll show a baseline. And remember, within each region, you can also add tags as well. If you wanted to, if there was something specific you wanted to know, you could add a tag to your regions. It's really easy to do. And yeah, so I have a baseline for my 3 groups. I can double click on them. And what it's doing, it's default selecting the mean of that region. And I also have a region for the treatment. So here I have different types of treatment. So for example, here was my saline treatment. Mary was my drug X treatment. So Mary was treated with 1 milligram per mil in the first week. And the James was our placebo. So we can see that. So what we've done with these regions, as I've done these consistently among all the weeks, is I can go to my table and I can see the 2 different regions. I can see baseline and I can see treatment. So remember, all my regions, I've selected baseline for all the recordings and I've selected treatments for all the recordings as well. So what we see here, the sick person James, this is the baseline for James among all the 4 weeks. So you can see the actual points here, and I can actually navigate to that important region in time. So you can see how, if you had a lot of recordings here, you could just easily click on any of these points and you actually navigate to that region instantly. So that's a really easy way of looking at your data. If you did that, if you had everything in Excel, then to find that point, you have to go back through LabChart, find the LabChart file, open up LabChart, and then just find that particular point in time. So this way, it's really simple to navigate your data. And you can see the cross analysis here. So we have the baseline, the BPs here, all set up for us, the blood pressures. So the different subjects, their control, drug treatment, and sick, and we can compare how, if this, drug worked at all to change their blood pressure. The table view also has options to just, add columns, or you can add or divide or hide your channels if you like, to make things, or add, to remove any of these. If you want, you can do that, and I'll talk about that in a future webinar. Another option here is the show regions view. So the regions that I did talk about, you can search for the region itself. So you can say treatment, and I can look for all the treatment regions. So these are all the regions that I've selected that I've called treatment. If I wanted to look for something like 1 milligram per kilogram, 1 milligram per mil, so I know that this has the region that had this one. So remember, this was a treatment region, but I tagged it with a low dosage. So that's really important to have those tags so you can subcategorize your regions. So that's a really simple way of doing it. And you can also look for things like, BP, you can look for channels. It's a real simple way to do that as well. And of course, the last thing we have is we can hide our data here if you want. You can hide it and open it up, and we have the options to also undo as well if you make a mistake. This option here is also another search engine that will help you look for your data. So if you look for something like, medium, who had the medium level activity, then we know, okay, medium level activity was in this chart here, recording. So I can actually go to that particular recording straight away. So that's how Lightning works. So what it will shows you that you can import, we can have a trial for you set up straight away today. You can import your data, you can have a play with it. It's an excellent tool for cross-analysis of your data. It's really easy to do calculations. It's easy to overlay. Has so much potential here when it comes to integrating new serial devices. And it's a really simple and easy way to look at your data. And please just have a go of it. It's absolutely a fantastic tool. So the next webinar we'll be doing will be in a fortnight, and that will be on just me recording some data. So I'll just do some 2-point calibrations, measuring some pulse transducers, something simple like that, and just going through how that works. And we can do some signal conditioning, some filtering of our signal, and just talk a bit more about annotations, like drop-in comments as well. We'll do that for our next option, for our next webinar. So if there's any comments, I'm more than happy, or any questions, I'm more than happy to answer anything now. If there's no comments, I will just leave it to that then. We'll have a survey after this that will just talk to you about your experiences, and you can email me anytime you like with any questions to do with Lightning. I'll also forward you that SDK. I do have a really handy video to do with license subscriptions that was done by our product manager, Emily. And yeah, have a great day, and look forward to seeing you in the next webinar. Thank you very much for attending. See you later.